Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1703. My look is normal today. I was looking so terrible yesterday that YouTube actually placed a screenshot over me. Ah ha ha ha. So I shouldn't show up with no eyebrows again. But in some cultures, people shave off their eyebrows and then redraw them high up. I think the Japanese do that for some parts of kabuki theater. I'm not sure, but I know that I've read about something like that in the past. And anyway, so now we are reading George J. Tinus, Sunday, Millennial Samurai. This is also the book we read yesterday, Millennial Samurai, Book One, A Mindset for the 21st Century. A book, A Mindset for the 21st Century. And we're reading this because I think that it's got a lot of ways for us to center ourselves. And we're on page 92, The Age of Reason. In Morsels of a Thought, I tried to give you thoughts of wisdom, hopefully, that we may know the right things to do for ourselves, and by doing them, we commit acts of virtue. Knowing the right thing to do is wisdom, doing it is virtue. That's what my fortune cookie said many years ago. So, anyway, okay. The Age of Reason. The Age of Reason traditionally refers to the age at which children become more capable of rational thought. It is generally regarded as the age at which children have internalized a conscience and have a greater capacity to control their impulses. It's the time when a child starts to truly understand the difference between right and wrong and to realize that other people have feelings that might not match their own. For a child, this is thought to occur at around the age of 7. I can tell you that for me, it occurred at around the age of 4.5. I can tell because that is when I climbed up on my dresser and I looked in the mirror at my own eyes and I tried to look like a cartoon, to look left and look right and see what I looked like when I did that. But when I did that, I looked like this and I looked like this, but I could only see myself looking at myself. And I remember thinking, gee, I am me. And that was interesting. Here, says the author, I want to alert you to a different age of reason, quote, end quote, which occurs at or around the age of 25. The prefrontal cortex of your brain, which is the critical area that controls logical reasoning, doesn't fully develop physiologically until you're 25. Knowing this information should give you pause when you're younger than 25. Given this physiological limitation, it may make sense to postpone many of your life altering decisions until after you're 25. Parents, if you're reading this, realize that an inability to communicate effectively with your child before they are 25 may in part be due to this physiological limitation. So, rather than giving up on a child whom you're having trouble communicating with, say at 18 or 21, you might want to cut them some slack and wait for the logical reasoning portion of their brain to fully develop. The difference between a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old can be profound, especially when it comes to what we normally think of as, quote, maturity, end quote, which is essentially increased rational behavior. Always be aware of both your strengths and limitations. This is a physiological limitation and it should not be ignored. Now, I know for a fact that I was over 26 when that happened. So We have averages and we have individuals. So people, be aware that this number may not be accurate for you. It may be very general rather than precise. It could be an accurate number for the population, but it may not be precise for the individual. So think of it that way. And also the age of reason when they're a child, hey, it can occur as early as when they're age 2, I think, because I recall having a niece that could learn to read at age 2. She could already tell what was right and what was wrong. It was interesting. Anyhow, perspective. Have you ever wondered how two incredibly intelligent people can see the same issue very differently? This used to puzzle me, says the author. I would see two brilliant people look at the same issue, the same facts, the same information, and arrive at opposite conclusions. It happens every day, and they can't both be right. We all see life through our unique prisms. 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 Our personal experiences shape the way we see the world. Since everyone's life experience is unique, everyone's prisms are different. This explains why your view of reality may be at odds with someone else's view. One reality, even seen through very different prisms, resulting in divergent conclusions. We share this world with approximately 7.5 billion people and counting. They all have varied backgrounds and personal experiences. They all have unique prisms. They all see things differently. Understanding and having a tolerance for multiple perspectives is therefore critical. Be open to changing and modifying your perspective. Watch, read, and listen to multiple points of view, especially those that you disagree with. Be open, flexible, curious, and adaptive. Understand the limitations of your own perspective and the opportunities offered by the perspectives of others. I once had a friend that I would discuss things with, and we saw a film called Rashomon. It was a Japanese film, and it had to do with the perception of truth. We saw the same story played 3 times through with different outcomes and different storylines, but they were essentially the same story. Oh, okay, here we are reading Millennial Samurai Book One, A Mindset for the 21st Century by George J. Chanos. And I'm stopping aside before page 94 to talk about how there was a film and a friend and I came to completely different conclusions about the film. There was one story where the woman told of being on a horse, riding horseback, and her husband walking the horse, and a bandit coming out from the forest and killing her husband and raping her. The bandit told the same story and said that these two people were walking through the forest on with one on a horse, and he came and killed the man, and the woman came on to him. In fact, the woman came on to him before he had to kill the man. And then the same story was told again by the ghost of the man that was dead. And I believe another storyline was the fourth perspective, which was a passerby who came and saw a dead body with a knife sticking out of it. And the woman having been, anyway, so my friend came across that story and said, I believe the passerby's story. I couldn't believe it because, in my view, none of them had told the truth. And so He said he believed the passerby's story, except for the fact that the knife had disappeared. And during an inquisition, an inquisition of it, um, an inquiry, I suppose. What do they call that? An in something. And it was an inquiry into the death. The person that was running the inquiry said, "Where did the knife go? Do you have it?" He asked the passerby, and the passerby screamed and said yes. So, perception is next. Page 94 by George J. Chanos. Just because we see something a particular way does not make it reality. Every moment of our lives, our brains are turning sensory data into what we believe is reality. Yet there is no provable link between this is what I see and this is what is real. Your brain determines your perception. Different brains perceive things differently. Humans in general have five senses that operate within a limited band of reception. For example, we can't hear frequencies that dogs and bats can hear. Eagles can see clearly 8 times as far as humans can, allowing them to spot a rabbit at a distance of 2 miles. They can also see a wider range of colors than we can, as well as UV light. African elephants can distinguish odor molecules that humans and other primates can't come close to discerning. Constrained by our perceptual tools, we have no way to measure reality outside of our limited perception. Stephen Hawking belonged to the camp of physicists who believe that reality exists as a material fact, but he conceded, as did Einstein, that science doesn't claim to know what reality is. Even believing in a fixed reality is an assumption, perhaps the greatest assumption of all time. Einstein called it, quote, my religion, end quote, to denote that this was an article of faith for him. He could not prove that reality exists as a fixed state or material fact. Reality may not exist at all as a material fact. What we mistake for reality may simply be a product of our perception. There may be no such thing as provable reality. There may be only your version of it, which is essentially your perception. Every day, scientists are making new discoveries that are forcing them to disregard that which they previously thought was true. The philosopher Thomas Nagel, who has studied how different species view the world, speculates that our current notions of evolution, quote, will come to seem laughable in a generation or two, end quote. Our perception is not only limited by our senses, but by our our perception is not only limited by our senses, but by our perspectives and biases as well. According to the Talmud, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. We often confuse perception with reality. We mistake how we understand things for the way they really are. Our thoughts and feelings seem real to us, so we conclude that they must be true. They must be reality. What if even our most deeply held beliefs were not true? What if what we think is reality is not reality at all? We often don't realize how our perceptions cloud reality. It is extremely important to be aware of the effect that perception has on our beliefs and how this influences our conclusions, decisions, behaviors, and actions. Perception is an extremely powerful and important concept. Our reality is shaped by our perception. Our perspectives, expectations, and biases shape our perception. By controlling our expectations, considering multiple perspectives, and by being aware of our biases, we can control our perception and see reality more clearly. Leading a happy, successful, and meaningful life requires that we not allow our biases, perspectives, expectations, or perceptions to blind us. You need to try to see reality as clearly and objectively as possible, which means that you always need to consider multiple perspectives. This is some learning that we all must need to do from the time we're 3 years old. Anybody who doesn't know this stuff is less than a child. A child knows this stuff. A child says, "Gee, I think this, and she thinks that." And they'll go to an adult and say, "I think this, and they think that. How come?" They will ask why. So they will even be aware that there are different perspectives. They may not think they're right, but they will understand that there are different perspectives. We are reading George J. Chanos, A Mindset for the 21st Century, Book One of Millennial Samurai. We are in Morsels of a Thought, number 1703. I've come this many days to you consecutively in order to bring what is hopefully wisdom, which is what you can do in your own life that will make things better for you and the world a better place. And by doing those acts that are known as wisdom, we are we are conceptualizing and acting out acts of virtue, committing acts of virtue. Anyway, tribalism. Tribalism. Let me see how long this part is. Oh, yeah. I thought it was long. Humans have always lived in groups. It comes more naturally to us than any other way of life. For the overwhelming majority of our time on this planet, the tribe was the only form of human society. And I am aware from Spence, what's his name? Spence. Something Spence, his last name was Spence. He wrote that tribes were about 300 people large before they collapsed. Anyway, critical mass was about a membership of 300 in a tribe. Anyhow, back to George J. Chanos. For the overwhelming majority of our time on this planet, the tribe was the only form of human society. Tribalism is part of our evolutionary DNA. America has devolved into two tribes, each of which finds the views of the other tribe unacceptable and often incomprehensible. In each tribe, members often place their loyalty to the tribe above their loyalty to the country. Members of both tribes see current events through a prism that advances not the country's interests, but their own and those of their tribe. One tribe is ethnically diverse. They live on the coasts and in major cities. They're skeptical, if not contemptuous, of religion and capitalism, and they're increasingly global in their perspectives. The other tribe is significantly more white, is spread out across the country, embraces traditional religious values and capitalism, and sees the world from a nationalist America First perspective. Each tribe dominates a major political party, and both are moving further apart. Since 2004, the most populous urban counties have moved toward Democrats, while rural counties have shifted toward Republicans. Race, religion, and geography now define our political parties and our tribes. Our political culture has become one in which the two parties see themselves not as participating in a process of moving the country forward, but one where the goal is to defeat the other party by securing a majority. Scientists call any group that people feel a part of an in group, and any group that excludes them an out group. We think differently about those in our in group than we do about those in an out group. We also behave differently toward members of each group. We do this unconsciously, whether or not we intend to discriminate between the groups. The groups that we belong to influence the way we see our own place in the world. They also influence how we view others. We all belong to many groups. The same person may think of himself as a woman, a business owner, a mother, or a Mexican, depending on what is most relevant at the time. Our self identification is shifting and situational. Advertisers are keenly aware of this dynamic. That's why companies like Apple spend hundreds of millions on advertising campaigns that attempt to position the Apple in group as smart, sexy, and successful. Once we think of ourselves as belonging to a certain group, or a member of an exclusive country club, a member of management, a teacher, a Democrat, or a Republican, the views of others in the group begin to influence our thinking and the way we see the world. Psychologists refer to these views as, quote, group norms, end quote. In our in groups are our in groups are by definition groups whose members we perceive as having a commonality of interest with us. This shared identity causes us to see our fate as being tied to the fate of our quote in group, end quote. We we see the group's successes and failures as tied to our own. One of the consequences of tribalism is that you don't actually have to think very much. All you need to know on any given subject is which side you're on. You pick up signals from everyone around you. You eventually narrow your acquaintances to those who will reinforce your worldview. Research suggests that we have a natural tendency to prefer those in our quote in group end quote. Studies show that common group membership will even be more important to us than personal attributes. We may choose to be friends with someone who we dislike simply because they are a group member, while rejecting someone else we like more because they are not a group member. We may evaluate the work of an in-group member more favorably than the work of an out-group member, even while we believe we are being objective. We treat our in-groups and our out-groups differently, whether or not we consciously intend to do so or recognize that we are doing so. In a new study of the voting habits of professors, Democrats outnumber Republicans 12 to 1, and the imbalance is growing. Among professors under the age of 36, the ratio is almost 23 to 1. Conservative dissent therefore becomes tribal blasphemy. Free speech becomes, quote, hate speech, as many of the academic elite regard opposing views as threats to their existence. Democrats looked the other way as President Obama ramped up deportations. Republicans were obsessed with the national debt when President Obama was in office, but the minute President Trump came to power, they supported a tax package that could add trillions of dollars to the nation's debt. Remarkably, research has shown that it is not even necessary that you share any characteristics with your fellow, quote, in group, end quote, members, or even for you to have met the other group members. Simply knowing that you belong to the group triggers your in group loyalty and affinity. We will continue from here next week in tribalism. Book 1, Millennial Samurai, George J. Chanos, A Mindset for the 21st Century. Okay, so we will talk to you again later. I will see you tomorrow for Mortgage Monday. And I hope you have a great day. I hope I have inspired you to think of the right things to do and create your own wisdom, make the world a better place, and then go commit yourself to action, which will be acts of virtue. Okay? Old Kinderhook.